Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I cannot even tell you how excited I am to talk with you guys and for this to be one of our very first Simplified Parenting podcast episodes. Hi, do you guys just want to introduce yourselves to everyone?
Yes. Emily, we're so glad to be here. We're just thrilled to be here. My name is Mary Flo Ridley.
And I'm Megan Michelson, and we are the birds and the bees.
I love it.
And it is what it sounds like it is.
We teach parents how to talk to their kids about sex. We're going to put that word out there. So put those little ear pods in if you need them.
I can't even tell you, when I discovered you guys a couple of years ago, let's see, my oldest is about to turn 10. So it was probably 5 years ago. And I have a lot of parent friends that are like, I'm sorry, you started talking to your children at what age about this? But he was 5 and he had questions. And it was a question that was asked during breakfast, getting ready to go to school. And as soon as he left the house, I was like, okay, I have 8 hours to figure this out, because when he comes home, we're saying something about it.
Right.
My gut told me, and you know, it's the mommy gut thing. My gut told me it was time to say something because many questions are being asked. And in my Googling, I found you guys, and you have been so very helpful to me. And I just know you're going to be so helpful to everybody listening. I had the distinct honor of watching your course that you offer on your website the other day. And as soon as Brian came home from work, I was like, okay, sit down. We need to talk about all of this. But I'm so excited that we are going to have this chat today, because when I think about simplifying different parts of life, lots of parts of life are complicated. But as a parent, especially in the season that I'm in right now with 2 6-year-olds and an almost 10-year-old, this is a big thing. And it's something that's so important for so many reasons. I don't want to get it wrong, you know? And so that's why I'm just so excited to have you guys here. And I think the big question that we can kind of start with, why do you think that this topic, you know, in my head, before I discovered you guys, in my head, it was like, okay, when my child is, like you said, maybe preteen, we're going to make a big deal. We're going to sit down and we're going to just take all the information and throw it in his lap, and hopefully we do it right. Why do you think this conversation is so scary for parents to have with their kids?
I think it just carries a lot of weight. I think it's important to remember that we as parents are post-pubescent beings. And so we have this is not a bad or good word, but we have a sexualized mind. So everything goes through that lens of post-puberty mindset. Mm-hmm. And so the thought of sharing something like that with our innocent baby children, you know, even if they're 10, they're our babies, you know? So the thought of, it's like you're crossing 2 different worlds. And so I think that just makes us anxious of like, well, I don't want to tell them, but I don't want somebody else to tell them. And I don't want them to know, but I want them to know. And, you know, I think it's overwhelming as parents to try to explain something sensual and sexual to our young kids, because that makes us nervous. I also think it brings up a lot of insecurities in our own life, you know, or past experiences. This is terrible when my parents said this. I don't want them to have that same experience. You know, I don't want to have the talk. That's something we're actively trying to get rid of, is this one big bad talk, an awkward thing and an awkward age. So I think we have our own memories or baggage of how that went when we were growing up, or maybe how that didn't go as we were growing up. You know, so many parents never say the word sex in front of their kids, or the kids don't get the talk. And then we also have our own experiences of, you know, good and bad experiences, things that what made us feel emotionally, physically. So there's lots of issues here. Spiritually can be a component. There's just so much at play that I think it has everybody very anxious with this topic.
Yeah. And there's a lot of anxiety too, if you think this is my one and only chance. And then if it doesn't go well, I'm done. So there's a buildup of anticipating it. And so actually we have simplified that by what is it in cooking where you take it apart, you know, where we deconstruct the talk into smaller age appropriate conversations when they're asking. And so you are just, you know, we talk about either pour the whole bucket of water on them at once or a drip, drip, drip method.
Yes.
And also circling back if that didn't go well. So
yes. I love that so much.
That's something I know you say, grace over perfection, I think is one of your taglines.
Yeah.
And obviously we have been following you for many, many moons. And in a way, I kind of feel like we're talking to the Oprah of our
oh my gosh.
Exactly.
So I know that's
very kind.
You, but I really am like, y'all, this is big. Anyway, so we're kind of fangirling over here. But grace over perfection is something you've said a lot. And that's really resonated with our work too, because that pressure Mary Flo was just talking about is so real for parents.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I do feel like our generation of parents feel or kind of have some understanding of like, okay, we've got to do this differently.
Yeah.
I think everyone kind of gets that at some level of like, the culture is very sex saturated, the things our kids are being exposed to and seeing and knowing. And then the old way of doing things. Okay, I know I need to do something different, but then there's that pressure of like perfection. So if I mess this up, then what? Or okay, I get one shot. And if I get awkward and crumble or get splotchy over my chest, you're like, this is going to be terrible.
That's me.
So, well, that's a lot of us.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we really want to is, you know, with our course and our tools to really come in beside parents and kind of like, you can do this. And we say, we want you to be purposeful and not perfect. So again, it's the same idea, but we want to have purpose behind our words and be intentional with our words. And we are going to mess up.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to say something like,
right.
Why did I say that? Like, so something we say a lot is to circle back. And, you know, these kids are in your homes, they're in your car,
you'll see them again.
Yeah.
A lot.
We will see them again. Yeah. Absolutely.
This year, it's like, they're always there.
They're always there. I love having important conversations in the car because they can't get out. They're right there.
Exactly.
Right. So what do you think? I'm thinking about my mom friends and the texts that circulate, like, when is the right time? Is it 10? Is it 13? Is it 8? What do you think is the right age to begin having these conversations?
Well, it's a lot sooner than you think.
Yes.
But I want to not upset people that think, oh my goodness, I missed the window.
Yeah.
So if they're 10 or 11, at any time, you can jump in anytime. And but we actually tell parents to start thinking about it when they're very little, because one of our first steps is for you to anticipate how these conversations are going to go, to formulate a family message, and then to start with vocabulary. So potty training time is a vocabulary time. And when you have a second child coming or a cousin coming and they say, how's that baby getting out of there? You need to be ready. And so getting ready for it is actually when they're little.
Very small.
Very small.
So this is one of the things I love most about the ways that you have helped our family is that you've broken it down into 6 steps, right? And I love the idea of first and foremost, whether you're ready to sit down and begin having these discussions or you're really nervous or wherever you are in it, to develop a family message that is unique to your family. And something I love that you talked about in the course that I watched was that all families look different. Some families have adopted children. Some families have IVF kids like ours. Some families have 2 dads. Families just look completely different. So you come up with this family message that then kind of directs your footsteps for how everything else will go. So talk to us a little about how we can come up with a family message that is important and special to us.
Well, I think you did such a great job recapping that, because what we want parents to hear first and foremost is that this is a personalized approach. We give you tools and strategies and specific sample phrases and all these things, but ultimately these are your kids. This is your family. And so your message and your approach to this is going to be specific to what you want your kids to know. And that's something we want to empower parents with, that, to kind of take that control back. If we don't have to wait for the school to say something or the youth group or, their kid on the soccer team, like we can be in charge of this. And that's going to be reflective of our family values and beliefs. So that will look different for every family. And creating your family message, what we mean by that is to answer the question is, what do I want my kids to know about sex if they're growing up in my home? And that is a big question. And that's something that if you are married, that's something you really want to get your spouse on, on the same page with, to really talk through that and kind of understand. It's almost like an overarching theme. Like, where do we want all of these conversations to go? What's our game plan? And that, again, that does look different for every family. But what we want to do is to have an offensive message. I think it's so, it's our instinct, I think, with this topic to have a defensive strategy of like, okay, you're not going to do this. You're not going to date this person. You're not going to watch this. You're definitely not going to see this, or, all these defensive approaches. But what we really want, and this is why it's our first step, is really want parents to kind of have an offensive strategy. What do I want them to know? And then how can I move towards them with this information?
Yes, I love that so much. And it was something that, when Brian came home from work the other day, I was like, okay, we need to talk family message. And he was like, whoa, what are we talking about? But what I realized is I thought for sure we were on the same page, that our family message was what I just assumed it was. And there were little nuances that were a little bit different for him and for me based on how we grew up, or, all sorts of different things. And so working on that together was kind of eye-opening, and I know we'll direct our steps. Now, obviously, we're having different conversations with our almost 10-year-old than we're having with our 6-year-olds. But we have, like you say, even with our littles, we've introduced the cast of characters. So I thought it might be helpful. Maybe you could just give us a brief overview of the 6 steps and what those look like, and how kind of how they all play into the process.
Okay, well, first is that family message. And like we just said, and we see that as the cornerstone for making this a successful series of conversations within your family, because from that message, you get vocabulary. You are using the words that are important to you, that they understand. And so we actually ask you to put that message into one sentence, which is challenging, but is a good process to go through, that like you and your husband are going through. So after you get your message, then you work on vocabulary, respectful, anatomically correct vocabulary.
So important.
That's really important. And then the next step is to answer the question, so how is that baby getting out of there? Typically, children are curious about birth before they're curious about conception, even though biologically we know that the order, we follow their curiosity more than the biological order. So answering the question in a dazzling way, and we'll give you sample conversations of what does that sound like exactly. And then we kind of pause, and
so then we have a quick little pause for porn. Obviously it's a very heavy topic, but I think just because I feel very strongly that just because something's heavy or dark doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. If anything, we should just turn the lights on and make it known. And so we just in that little section, we really just our hope is to inform parents and just let them know, be aware. These are the realities. These are the statistics. Kids are being exposed to pornography at very young ages. And then what do we do about it? And in all of these conversations, our hope is to give parents tools and the confidence to be proactive with these conversations. So hearing this stuff about pornography is very scary. But what we do not want is for parents to just stop there and be afraid and put their head in the sand. That would be a failure on our part. What we want you to do is to be scared, but almost channel that into mad. Okay, well, then what am I going to do about this? I'm going to protect my kids. And so we talk about ways to proactively engage our kids, just to make them aware. There are some good pictures out there and bad pictures out there, and we share lots of resources. But just in the same vein that you would talk about any dangers in their life, like the oven, swimming pools, like those things are dangerous. They're also fun and a part of our life and things we can enjoy as a family, but we need to be careful because of X, Y, and Z. So that is our pause for porn. And then we jump back into happy, easy topics for step number 4, which is reproduction in all living things. And we help outline ways to engage in conversations about seeds and eggs. And
I love this part.
Really, fruitful conversations, excuse the pun. But this is just a great way. And this is a very easy step with young kids that you can have time and time again, just to re-emphasize this idea that new life comes from seeds and eggs. And again, what we're trying to do is just give parents opportunities to have foundational conversations over and over again. So they're building these ideas in their children, and it's not, again, one big bombshell conversation.
Yeah.
Then we move on to step number 5.
Yes. And so it's good to have conversations about seeds and eggs so that they understand that from seeds and eggs come new life. Yes. And so then it's easier to move on to the conversation of, so how did that baby get in there? Well, there was a seed deep inside of the daddy and an egg deep inside of the mommy. And when the seed and the egg meet, then the baby can get started. So it's really more about focusing on the mechanics, the design, the basic biology for a young child. You really don't have to enter into any kind of sensual story with them. What you want them to understand is how this works.
Yeah.
And so, and for some families, like you were just saying, it may involve more science, but even those children who are IVF babies, I think it's important for them to see the design of the seed and the egg.
Yep.
That you never can get away from.
And all the babies come that way.
And that's why I think it's important to know is like, we're breaking it down to the most basic conversation of seeds and eggs and reproduction. And that is the basic biology, but the stories are going to be different for every family. Yeah. With IVF, same-sex families, adoption, all these stories are going to look different. Yeah. But giving parents the words to use to start the conversations.
I love that. And then it all comes back to that family message to kind of guide the words and the conversation and how that goes. Yeah. I love that. And I love I just have to get you guys to share the sponge metaphor analogy, because this is what, when I have parents who are friends of mine ask me, when do I have these conversations? When I have it was a gut feeling I had. And when I heard you guys say it, I just felt very validated that our kids are sponges and I want to fill them first.
So the sponge analogy is that if you will imagine in the mind of your child a sponge, and you can label that sponge curiosity about sexual things. They just kind of want to know. They're curious about these things. And they carry that sponge around in their brain all the time. They don't leave it at home when they leave. And so I think when I was growing up, that my parents made sure nothing, out of protection, out of a sense of protection, they made sure that nothing got into that sponge. And so I grew up with really an empty sponge. I didn't know what to think about a lot of these things. And that leads to confusion and also leaves you very vulnerable, because then you're wide open to whatever anybody else is going to use to fill that sponge. Also, if you think about the sponge, if you wait until the traditional idea of the talk, then that is taking a full pitcher and pouring it over a little sponge.
Overwhelming.
So overwhelming.
Big mess.
Big mess. Most of it does not get absorbed. It's shocking. It's, it's just not effective.
And it could be the first time they heard penis vagina, which is like, whoa. Wait a minute. It just sounds like my brain is turning off at that point.
Exactly.
If I'm 11. Right.
And the parent's brain is turning up. It's like, how fast can I run out of this room?
Yes.
It's a disaster.
Exactly. Yeah. But the birds and bees method is really drip, drip, drip.
Yeah.
Absorbing little pieces of information that are age appropriate. You're not having the talk. You're having lots of little conversations in an age appropriate way, focused on the message of your family and the basic biology.
Yeah. I love that. And even starting very, very young, just labeling parts as they are scientifically named. I think it also protects our kids, so that if they need to have conversations about those parts or interactions with others and that sort of thing, we know, or other adults in their life understand what they're talking about. I also love what you say about just starting very young with the seeds and eggs conversation. I mean, we can have those conversations at the zoo. We can have them in the garden. I mean, there's just so many places where I feel like the concept, the basic, very basic concepts of seeds and eggs can be talked about in a very non-overwhelming kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what we hope parents, what we really hope to convey to parents is like, you can do this. We know this is scary and overwhelming, and we know not everyone is going to be as jazzed as we are about talking about this.
Yeah.
You can be a confident parent in your own home and with this topic. And you can do this because ultimately, you know, some people are like, well, can you just come over and talk to my kids for me? You know, it's like, that's not nobody cares what so-and-so has to say. You know, it's like, you are the best person for your child.
Yes.
You are, you know, the best person to be the loving authority in their life.
The authority. That's what I feel like when I have these conversations with my kids. I channel a little bit of you, Megan, because I'm like, she's so confident when she says penis vagina. Like, I would like to be. You
can do it.
You can do it. So sometimes I just practice it. But I want to be the authority. I want to be the confident expert on the conversation. And I've noticed, especially with my oldest, he feels very comfortable coming and saying, Mom, I heard a word. Can I say it to you? And then you tell me what it means. And usually it's some like word. It doesn't make sense. It's usually a word. But he has come to me with questions. And I feel like that's because we've tried to position ourselves as experts. And so that's something I've learned a lot from you guys.
Well, and something you were saying a minute ago about protection, I do think we have to see it in that vein also. Like going back to that sponge, if it's a full sponge, if something else gets poured on top of it, it's likely to roll off. We're kind of protecting our children with the information that we've put in the sponge instead of leaving them wide open. And a lot of parents are hesitant to talk to their young children because they're afraid they'll destroy their innocence.
Yeah.
That's what we hear a lot. I just don't want their innocence to be disrupted. But what I want to challenge parents with, what we want to challenge parents with, is that innocence is not equated with ignorance.
Yes.
Innocence is more of a knowledgeable attitude, and ignorance is not equal to innocence. So we don't want our children to be vulnerable. We want them to have, in a loving, knowing way, an understanding from their parents. So
I love that. Mary Flo, can I get you to share just this story just sticks with me. The story of your daughter going to, was it first grade? The first day of first grade? I just sat and listened to this story and was like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How did you handle this? Oh my goodness.
Well, early on, Jill had asked how babies are born and how babies are made. Early on, I was expecting my third. She was pretty young. She was just starting kindergarten. And you know how children will come and just wake you up by staring at you?
Yes, all the time.
Yes. So she would stare at me and I would open my eyes and she would say, today's the day. I know you're going to tell me today. So early on, I had explained to her exactly how babies are made and babies are born. And I did it in the most simple way that I could, but I felt like she needed something. Once again, I just introduced the characters of a seed and an egg, a mommy and a daddy and a baby. So she goes off to kindergarten, actually. And in the third week of kindergarten, she came home from school and she had a new friend. Mommy, I made a new friend, but I don't think you're going to let me play at her house. And I thought that was a curious thing to say. So I said, well, sweetheart, why not? And she said, well, after school, her 16-year-old brother watches her and she watches her 16-year-old brother have sex.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Breathe.
Right.
And I had labeled what I said when I did, just going back a minute in the story, when I had told her that that's how babies are made, I said, the name for what I've just told you is called sex. So I sat on the floor, Millie kind of fell to the floor, but I said, I'm just going to sit right here. And I said, sweetheart, I'm so sorry for your friend, but, and in a minute, mommy will call, we'll make a phone call, see if I can help her. So that was when I realized it really was her protection, that I had answered her questions. I probably never would have told her had she not been asking. But because I was able to give her, she asked a zillion questions. I gave her as many answers as I felt like I could. But then she was able to realize, if that hadn't happened, there's a chance that she would have been invited over and that would have been part of her experience. Plus, we were able to get some counseling teams over to that house and help that family.
My goodness. My oldest, he was in kindergarten and he was learning things on the school bus.
Yes.
So it was way faster than, just way faster. And I'm glad that we had those conversations. Well, I'm so grateful for you guys. And tell us the name of your course and where everyone can find it, because it was just infinitely helpful for me. And you also have some bonus content with that course that I found to be just super helpful too. So tell everybody a little bit about that.
So our online course is available on our website, birds-bees.com. And the entire course takes less than 90 minutes. So it was exciting to hear you say that you wanted Brian to hear it, because obviously we talk a lot to moms on Instagram, and the podcast world is fairly mom driven. But again, if you are married, you really want your spouse to join you in on this topic. So you can sit on the couch and knock this out in one night, break it up. So our online course is on our website. The course covers our 6-step strategy, but it also includes some bonus videos. Our most frequently asked questions are on there. Our number one most frequently asked question is, my child is touching their private parts. What do I do?
Yeah.
We share some of our favorite books and websites and other resources for parents. And then we also include an extra video about how to incorporate your faith. So for those families that do want to have a biblical understanding of sex in their conversations with their children, we talk about ways to implement our faith in these conversations. So all of those are included in our course, and you can find it on our website. You can also follow us on Instagram. We are doing our best to have an active Instagram account, but as you know, it's a lot of work. So
it's a lot of work.
Follow us, but no promises for it. Anyways, follow us on Instagram. We share lots of helpful advice.
Yes, you absolutely do. Well, one of the things that we're going to try to do with every single one of these episodes is to leave people with like one tactical tip. If someone is listening today and they're like, okay, like this is the process I want to follow, what do I do? Like, what's my very first step today to get the ball rolling?
I would say a tactical tip would be to really decide that you're going to do this. Just like you had that gut feeling. Some people have that feeling to run in the other direction, but to actually make the decision, I'm going to move forward towards a topic that's very scary to me. And in moving forward, that's very empowering. And if you move forward, and, of course, I want to say, listen to our course, but if you move forward, know where you're going. Because that will help you see, okay, I'm going in this direction with these conversations. And that will just give you confidence instead of reacting to, well, if they come and ask me a question, I will react, but what will I say? Right. That's hard, because then that means I don't know what question is coming when. Yeah. But if you decide, I am going to move towards this topic and I'm going to get prepared for any question that comes, or I'm going to at least be prepared to address the topic. That would be, I think, the first step that needs to happen. Do you have a different?
Well, I might add one.
Yes,
if we get
please.
maybe a twofer.
Two for price one. I love it.
I would encourage parents today to start the P's and V's, as I like to call it. Penis and vaginas. And you fake it till you make it. If you are floundering inside and you prefer to use what we call the wingy wangy words, which we all have, we all have silly willy words we use. But I could just encourage parents right away. A first easy black and white step is to introduce those terms to your kids. And you touch on this a little bit, Emily. And again, obviously, we believe in our message. We believe in our course. We want every family to feel this empowered when it comes to talking to your kids about sex. But ultimately, I think it's just as important that we protect our kids. And I want every child to feel protected. And I want every parent to know they've done everything they can to protect their kids. And using penis and using vagina and labeling those as private parts is the number one way is we as parents can protect them from abuse. So again, I know that's a heavy topic that we don't have to dive into.
So important though.
Start there. I mean, we are giving such empowerment and protection to our kids. So that's a big takeaway. And again, you might be squeamish on the inside thinking, my mother would die if she heard me say the word vagina. Don't say it in front of your mom, say private. Right. But every once in a while, introduce to your kids, oh, that's your vagina. It's a private part. Nobody else can touch that part. Okay, let's get our panties on. We're going to get ready for bed.
Yep.
I mean, these are small, matter-of-fact conversations, but that would be
important. I love that. Takeaway. In preparation for today, I started thinking last night. I was hanging out with my two little ones, and I thought, we've always used the scientific proper names, but we kind of gotten away from it. And so last night I started using the words. I thought they were going to fall over laughing.
Yeah.
But one of my little ones said, "Oh, I always wondered what that was really called." And I thought, okay, well, this is good. And this is what we should be doing. So yes, that is such a good tip. Thank you guys so much. This is so helpful. And you have just really helped me so much, our family. It's been such a blessing. And I just know that this podcast and this conversation is going to be so helpful for so many moms and so many dads. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
This has been awesome.
I know. Thank you. We are just so grateful. Thank you.